Alright, what's up you guys? I'm here with a video topic that's kind of been going around lately, and a lot of people have debated this on what your Mount Rushmore of wrestling would be, which is basically the top four most iconic names in wrestling. So, I was tagged by Dan the Beast 94. If you don't know who he is, I'm going to put the link in the description, go check him out, and most likely you'll be seeing something with him very soon. But I usually don't do tag videos. Like if I'm tagged in something and I find it interesting enough, something I could do with it, then I'll respond. And I also don't always tag people, but I'm going to tag 3 people for this because I do think this is a very interesting question. I'm going to tag Wrestling Rampage, Relaxing Ghost, and Awesome 4K. I don't believe they've answered this question yet on what their Mount Rushmore would be. So here we go. So yeah, those 3 I tag. If you want to do it, you can. If not, then so be it. Okay, so it's hard to name the 4. I have it down to 6 for sure. That's the easy part. I have 6 wrestlers I would put. So you have to eliminate 2 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name the 6, and then I'm going to narrow it down to 4 for the Mount Rushmore. So the first one right off the bat that I would put is Bruno Sammartino. He was obviously the biggest draw for a long time. He had the longest WWF championship reign, or WWF, whatever you want to call it at the time. He was literally selling out Madison Square Garden. He was selling out venue after venue. He was a huge draw and the face of the company for sure. Next, you could put Andre the Giant, who is the biggest attraction in the history of wrestling. I don't care what you say. He was literally this international star. A lot of people say Hogan was the first international star. No, I will always say Andre the Giant was before Hogan in terms of being that humongous star, but not just for one company, because he would travel around. Like, he was literally an attraction. Next, I would put Hulk Hogan. That's an obvious one. The wrestling business wouldn't be what it is right now without 2 people, Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. In a lot of ways, it's the best thing to ever happen to wrestling, and in a lot of ways, it's the worst thing. Obviously, we don't have territories anymore. Vince bought out his competition and made it pretty much a monopoly. So, in a lot of ways, you could debate whether Hulk Hogan was a cancer to the business or he saved it. It's up to you to decide. Next, I would put Ric Flair. I consider Ric Flair to be the greatest wrestler of all time. And Dan the Beast in his video said if you have any personal experiences with him or anything like that, any of these guys, you can tell him. One of my prized possessions is a Ric Flair signed DVD. Definitely something I cherish in my collection. I don't just collect DVDs. The second thing I collect is autographs. So, this is probably the only one on this list that I have their autograph, unfortunately. So, yeah, Ric Flair, I think to be the greatest of all time, you have to be the entire package. I would say Benoit is the greatest technical wrestler of all time, but he wasn't the greatest promo of all time. You can say maybe, The Rock, or even, I would argue Macho Man or Jake Roberts and Roddy Piper to be the best on the microphone of all time. But you have to be the complete package, where I think Ric Flair is that complete package. He's literally great on the mic. He's great in the ring. He has great psychology, great storytelling. He is a star. I consider Ric Flair the greatest of all time. Number 5, Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's another obvious one. He saved WWF. He is, in my book, you may disagree with this, but I think he's the biggest draw in the history of wrestling. He's the most over wrestler ever. I would say more than Hogan, and I would say more than Bruno Sammartino. He may not have had this huge long run. I think that's kind of what separates the other guys from Stone Cold. Stone Cold was only on top for a few years, until 2001. So, you could argue like 96 when he won King of the Ring, that's when he was really gaining momentum. And then 2001, obviously, or not 2001, 2003, he retired. So, it's not even a decade there. At the very most, you could say 6 or 7 years he was on top. So, and then number 6, I might get heat for this, but John Cena. I mean, when you think of the modern era of wrestling, that's your last face of the company. The biggest problem with WWE right now is they don't have that draw. They are missing that Hulk Hogan-like figure. And John Cena was a Hulk Hogan-like figure. You can't argue that. Love him or hate him, he was. He was the face of the company. And WWE is missing that right now. And that's one of their big problems. They don't have that figure because Vince McMahon doesn't want to build a megastar anymore in fear that they're just going to leave his company and go be a star somewhere else. That's the legit reason. So take that as you will. So that's my 6. So that means I have to narrow it down to 4. I think I'm going to eliminate Andre the Giant. He may be the biggest attraction of all time, but I think what he was missing was always that big title run. He never had that. He may have been undefeated for a decade and a half, give or take, but he never had that really long title run where he would draw money and defend his title. So I think you're kind of missing that. And I think the next one I would eliminate was John Cena. I think he just barely makes the mark. So that means my top 4 by era, in order here: Bruno Sammartino, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold. That's what I'm going to go with here. Yeah, that's my top 4. I would think if your 4 most important figures in history: Bruno, Flair, Hogan, Stone Cold. That's my top 4. And it's sad that we are now almost at 20 years without having anyone on this list. And like I said, John Cena, of course, made the consideration for it, but he obviously didn't make the cut. So, yeah. In terms of meeting these guys, I've seen John Cena live countless times. I've seen Ric Flair live. Bruno Sammartino I never got to meet. Stone Cold I never did, and Hulk Hogan I never got to. And then Andre, of course, I didn't. I was born 3 years after he died, so that's unfortunate. But I do plan on getting autographs for all of them. I would love to meet anyone on the list that's still alive. But, yeah, that's about it. So, I tagged the 3 channels there. So, if you want to do it, go ahead. For now, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.